Hi guys, how you doing? Cheers for stopping by again. Great to see you here. Gonna read a few neckbeard stories from Reddit today, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. Cheers. The smelliest boy of all. Long story incoming. So I was sent to boarding school in the US when I was 14. I'd never lived away from home before and I was very introverted, so I was afraid making friends would be difficult. The campus was really big and green and beautiful, so I didn't mind being out in the dormitory called Chesterfield, which was the furthest from actual campus, maybe a 20-minute walk. Most of my dorm mates were cool, but there was one door in the hall upstairs that I'd never seen open, even after orientation ended and classes began. I asked someone about it and they just rolled their eyes and said, "Oh, that's Todd's room. You'll want to stay away from Todd." I found out Todd is a 2-year sophomore, i.e. he's redoing sophomore year for the 3rd time. He barely ever left his room except when the housemaster intervened. He never took a shower, literally never. He would just use up a big portion of the dorm's internet bandwidth and order greasy Chinese food from a nearby restaurant for every single meal. The first time I met Todd was at 7 AM as I was heading for the showers. I swear I smelled him before I even stepped into the bathroom. It was a disgusting reek of body odour, flatulence, mould, and something undefinable but horribly organic, almost fishy. Look, I have no idea why he smelled that way, but God help me, it still haunts me nearly 18 years later. Todd himself looked surprisingly inoffensive, really. He was short and pasty and somewhere between fat and stout. He had a pretty thick, bushy redneck beard that impressively didn't actually reach his face at all. It just stopped right at the jawline. His face was super greasy and pockmarked, and his hair was short and frizzy. He was wearing dirty, stained and torn sweatpants that looked like they'd been used to soak up chemical spills or something, and a ragged t-shirt. He looked like an Amish garden gnome. He looked like the Keebler elf put in charge of the licorice and onion cookies. He looked like a bad Oscar the Grouch cosplay. He also smelled like a Balrog's jockstrap. As soon as I walk in, he points a chubby finger at me, looks at me all intense and yells, "Who the fuck are you?" It's me. "I'm OP. Who the fuck are you?" Todd leaning in and actually sniffing the air around me. "Where are you from? Are you Indian?" Sniff sniff. I am Arab, so my skin is a few shades darker than the average white person. At this distance, his smell was just overpowering and I was trying not to breathe or gag. Me, sleepy and horrified. "No." I walk past him to go to the showers, edging around him and holding my breath. As I'm washing, I suddenly hear Todd yell down the hallway, crazy tantrum style, for our housemaster. "Mr. Jonas, why is there a fucking Indian in our dorm?" My housemaster wrote Todd up for that little outburst. Todd got written up a lot. Turns out he was brought up by a really crazy racist mother and aunt, and even though there were a few East Asian kids and Indian kids and Latino kids and black kids at the school, he really specifically hated me. So for a few weeks, this angry, smelly little homunculus went out of his way to showcase his disapproval of our school's admission policy, via letting terrorist goatfucker Al-Qaeda scum attend American schools and steal American knowledge. He submitted a complaint about me to my housemaster every few days or so. Some of his complaints about me. OP uses the bathroom late at night and purposefully disturbs his dorm mates. OP was spotted stealing napkins from the dorm rec room. OP stole books from the library. I checked out books for a class, but Todd decided I'd just swipe them. OP hogs all the washers and dryers in the laundry room. See, this one was particularly stupid since Todd was notorious for never washing his clothes, ever. OP is spreading anti-American terrorist propaganda. I shit you not. He even demanded that the dean inform the FBI. This was before 9/11 and the creating of Homeland Security. Now, as bad as Todd seemed, he was actually easy to deal with because no one ever saw him. He only emerged to pick up his $5 egg foo yun from the delivery guy, sometimes go to class or when the housemaster made him come down and do his house chores. He never attended dorm meetings, never socialised with anyone, barely even opened his door. That last fact was a huge blessing because Todd's room stank so much, all the kids neighbouring him chipped in to buy plug-in air fresheners and sprays to make the hallway more tolerable. They complained to the housemaster a lot, and Mr. Jonas had frequent talks with him about his hygiene, but Todd would just turn on the water in the shower and rinse himself just enough to look like he'd actually washed. The guy seemed terrified of soap, and to this day I still don't understand why. Flash forward to spring midterms and everyone is stressed and not interested in putting up with more shit. The weather was just getting hot, and Todd had taken to opening his windows and his door, a crack, to create a vacuum cooling Cortex in his room. His words. The result was evident one day when we all got back to the dorm from class to discover that the entire building now smelled like Todd's room. It smelled like a pack of skunks having an orgy in a dumpster at Burning Man. It smelled like a sick walrus with diarrhea trapped in a hot room. It smelled like Jabba the Hutt's hemorrhoids. Even now, as I'm recalling it, something in me wants to gag. It was insidious. Even after washing my bedclothes 3 times, I could still smell it. Eventually, I just had to buy new sheets. Naturally, everyone was pissed as hell that their clothes and beds and books and stuff all stank. The lawn outside the dorm was littered with all the stuff we'd thrown out, hoping the sun might purify this unholy corruption. The housemaster was suddenly facing 20 angry kids, all demanding that something be done about Todd. To make matters worse, the housemaster's family lived in an attached house, so even their space got some of Todd's signature musk, and Mrs. Jonas was even angrier than we were. So, Mr. Jonas called a dorm meeting. Todd, unsurprisingly, didn't show. So the few lacrosse and football jocks among us all stormed upstairs to Todd's room, took deep breaths, and ran in and manhandled his stinky ass out of the pit. We had all taken to calling Todd's room the pit. Todd was struggling and trying to do kung fu kicks and shuriken uppercuts on them, which only made them angrier. One of them starts pulling Todd down the hall suddenly, shouting, "Fuck the meeting, let's get him in the fucking shower." So 4 kids are now dragging a screeching Todd by his arms and legs down the hall as a 5th turns on the water. But there's a problem. Who's going to strip this kid? No one wants to touch any more of him than they have to, and absolutely no one wants to see him naked. Todd was angrily threatening everyone and calling them pussies and cowards and promising to report them all for this violation of his human rights. Then the 5 jocks, as one, all shrug, pick him up and just heave him into the shower, clothes and all. Now Todd is writhing on the wet floor of the shower, actually hissing like a vampire as the water sprays on his face, pretending to be hurt and occasionally squealing, like actually squealing like a pig, like the movie Deliverance. Everyone in the dorm is crowded around as best as we could. It was a small bathroom, and we can even hear Mr. Jonas coming up the stairs yelling about the noise. One of the guys, Eric, hero of the hour, and also Todd's immediate neighbour, grabs the mop from the cleaning cupboard, the same one we used to mop the dirty floors, and brandishes it at Todd. "Either you grab some soap and start scrubbing, Todd, or I'm using this. Okay, Todd? We're sick of this. You've been stinking up this dorm for nearly 3 years now, and we've had enough. I'll wash you with this mop, Todd, like they wash elephants at the zoo, unless you pick up that soap over there and start cleaning yourself." His voice is calm, but with that shaky edge to it that implies someone is just a hair's breadth away from snapping. I honestly remember his knuckles were white where he gripped the mop. That scene is burned in my memory. I was standing on the toilet, short kid, to see over Eric's shoulder. Todd was kneeling in the water, all dramatic, his little eyes as wide as they could go, eyeing Eric and the rest of us, eyeing the mop, water dripping down his frizzy beard and soaking into his clothes. It was almost like a Renaissance painting. Mr. Jonas has, by this point, forced himself into the crowded bathroom and is taking in the scene. He stands perfectly still for about 7 seconds, all of us looking at him, except Eric, the champion, who is staring Todd down with the determination of Hercules facing Cerberus. Todd is trying to look extra pathetic and victimised to curry more sympathy with the housemaster. Then Mr. Jonas just points at us with a stern look and says, "Do not hurt him." And then he turns around and walks out of the bathroom. Outside we can hear him telling some of the kids to grab some masks and gloves from the cleaning supply closet, and his disgusted groan as he opens the door to Todd's room and gets a face full of the reeking, swampy stink. So on that fateful afternoon we all stood there and watched Todd reluctantly scrub his face, his beard, his hands and his arms, all the while muttering threats about reporting us to the Dean and the Department of Education and the FBI and his mother. Eric makes him take his shirt and sweatpants off and throw them into the garbage bag. I wish I could somehow forget noticing that Todd's underwear, which had been white when they were new, were a grey shading to brown. No one there asked him to remove them. Mr. Jonas and a few heroic dorm mates cleaned Todd's room out, removing a good 3 big trash bags full of old rotten Chinese food, pizza boxes, wadded tissue paper, half disintegrated shoes and socks, and various other pieces of human detritus. They scrubbed the floors and the walls, they washed every piece of clothing and fabric they could take out of the room. They sprayed so much air freshener in there it looked like a fog. After that whole incident, we organised a duty schedule that included making sure that Todd showered at least twice a week. Everyone had to do it in groups of 2. We had to go knock on Todd's door and take him to the shower, where he was allowed to wear a bathing suit or shorts, as we watched him actually scrub himself down with soap and shampoo. If he refused, we told him we would literally hose him down inside his room, spraying his beloved computer and books and everything down too if we had to. The first time it was my turn to take part in this, Todd just shook his head and stared at me with hate in his piggy eyes and said, "I know you're the one who made them do this. Don't think you've fucking won, you goat fucker." I moved dorms the next year, and maybe saw Todd another 5 times total before I graduated. Someone told me he's married now and living back at home. All I can wonder is what that house must smell like. What a crazy story that one was, right? Well, cheers for sticking around to the end, guys. I appreciate all the nice comments I've been getting and the feedback from my last few videos. Make sure you subscribe and hit like, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.